Hello, and welcome to this special Christmas episode of Anime Audio Commentary. Today, I'll be commenting on episode 1 of Itsudatte My Santa. But before we get into it, I want to offer a brief apology. Normally, during this time of year, I would have an episode for every day of December leading up until Christmas. This year, however, I've been extremely busy, so the best that I have is an especially Christmas-themed OVA. Once again, I'm sorry, and I hope to have things back to normal for next year. Now, without further ado, I'll be commenting on episode 1 of Itsudatte My Santa. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So, the interesting thing about this OVA, in my view, is that it's based off a manga by Ken Akamatsu, I believe his name is. And the thing about him is that he is known far more for Love Hina, which was made after the source manga for this, but I believe adapted before this OVA was made. The other interesting thing about the guy is that he's a Japanese politician these days, sort of in a position roughly equivalent to the United States House of Representatives. So, that's it's just a weird thing, You never know what's going to happen in someone's life. And with that thought in mind, we now have the main character here. Like, the poor guy, due to his birthday and just circumstances, Christmas time isn't really great for him. And, he just sort of has to contend with a lack of family on Christmas time. And that's not a good thing, although I feel like it does have slightly different connotations in Japan. It seems like this anime is taking a decidedly Western approach to the holiday, but, as I'd sort of alluded to, he doesn't really know which way his life is going to turn. Case in point, this girl is, seemingly propositioning him, saying, hey, you want to spend the night together? And, she doesn't mean what everyone seems to think he means, but, that's not going to do him any favors one way or another. Now, I do have to notice here that there is a clear similarity to Love Hina in that the seeming heroine of this OVA is all too eager to just, slap someone for a misunderstanding. It's, I don't know if a product of its time is the right way to say it, but it's sort of something that's died out more recently so far as I'm aware, it seemed to me for a while like every anime had stuff like this, with perhaps the most extreme example in my mind being Louise from The Familiar of Zero. But despite, some violent proclivities, this girl proclaims to be a sort of agent of Christmas, intent on making the holiday happy and all that. Now, naturally, the poor guy, he doesn't want to have anything to do with her, even if she is willing to help him, He is so embittered by past experiences about the holiday that, he doesn't want any help, regardless of who's offering it. Now, the interesting thing is that I actually know a couple people who are also born on Christmas Eve, and although I guess barring any silly names, they haven't really suffered from it. Although that said, I feel like the combination of these two things, that's really got to weigh on a guy, especially if, other aspects of his life aren't exactly in order. At least the girl has the wherewithal to apologize, I mean, I don't know, her suggestion that she can fix all his problems in one night isn't, I don't know, it doesn't exactly pass the smell test here. It seems like she might be up to something, but, I don't know. at least she has the resolve to decide that, he's not going to ask for help, so she might as well just try to help him anyways. That said, I feel like, maybe just following him around as she is, she might just cause more trouble than it's worth. I mean, she is kind of making a bit of a nuisance of herself here. I feel like anyone who's playing a fighting game wouldn't really want to get into a real fight necessarily, Like, it's just kind of one of those things where, like, you do it so you don't have to do it in real life. So I guess, her heart's in the right place. She's trying to do all sorts of nice things that he might enjoy, but I don't know. I feel like there's some misplaced effort here, because she is just sort of like ignoring what he really wants, which is, largely nothing to do with her. However, there probably is some stuff she could do that would appeal to him. And I feel like all these public things aren't it. Maybe it would be nice if she stepped in to help him, seeing as how he's being beaten. I guess she is jumping in, but it might have been a bit nicer had she done so a little bit more proactively. Alright, here we go. So she is at least sort of making it clear to everyone that he is of some importance to her. Sort of declaring this to a group of thugs. Yeah, so I guess it's pretty clear at this point that whatever's going on here, there's more to her than meets the eye. She claims to be magical in some regard, and I guess there is something to back up that claim. Wow, so she can conjure a bunch of things, although it seems like most of it is thoroughly useless. Now, it was nice for her to stand up for Santa and all that, but I guess in a weird sort of way, he came in clutch for her, too. This is probably the best way to sort of foster a sense of camaraderie between the two of them. Ooh, that's interesting. The relationship between the two sort of fosters the magic of that little reindeer, which, I guess that makes sense from a sort of Christmas perspective. I'm reminded of the movie Elf, in which Santa's sleigh is powered by belief. So already, they've had something of a little misadventure, And even if that's all that really happens, Santa's had a far more remarkable day than he otherwise would have. And, probably for the better, too. Well, that's something. The Santa Claus in training. I suppose that's probably as good a name for her profession as any, but, Santa Claus is like a proper noun. It's a name of a person, Like, I don't know what else you would call it, but I guess it'll work, It does sound a bit clunky. Although I guess it is interesting that a Santa Claus in training has, through circumstances, decided to help out this guy Santa, Oh dear. So unfortunately, Santa doesn't really understand the gravity of the situation here. He just sort of assumes she really, really likes Christmas rather than being, some sort of genuine entity. Okay, so is Pedro like a real little reindeer then? I mean, she seems to indicate that he would bite strangers, which, indicates that he's a real living, breathing thing, but that didn't seem to be the case earlier. And furthermore, I don't imagine reindeer are normally that small. So Mize asked a rather pertinent question about why all the lights are off. And I guess the idea for Santa is, between his birthday and Christmas, his family is always too busy working, so there's no real reason to celebrate, no real reason to decorate. It's just another day. And, I can understand feeling that way after so much having transpired, but boy, that is dire. I mean, I get that he's still sort of upset about the whole thing, but I'd imagine at the age he is, if this has happened so frequently that he's probably just, kind of over it, or should be by this point, And if anything, I feel like, the purpose of Mai would be more to rekindle the spirit of Christmas and all that, and a sense of wonderment in the world, but I don't know. Perhaps the worst thing about all this is that, Santa's demand is absolutely warranted. Perhaps he should have, family around to celebrate with, and that the lack of them, it's sort of unconscionable, because, yes, they are working, but, is work really so important that you can't celebrate a holiday, I mean, I work a fair bit, but I couldn't imagine doing something like this, sort of welching out on spending time with family because I have to work. I guess the good thing for Santa is that he does have someone here who genuinely does seem to care. So a lot of the discourse is about Christmas and not having anyone to celebrate with, but I feel like, the sort of alternate interpretation of Christmas as a romantic holiday, that makes a bit more sense here. I guess with, the sort of romantic comedy that Ken Akamatsu normally writes, it's kind of unstated, but also informs things. So it is rather magnificent that Mai was able to sort of cook and decorate so rapidly. I mean, her cooking doesn't seem to be remarkably wholesome, but the decorations are nice at least. And, I suppose beggars can't really be choosers, right? She went to all this trouble, so, the least you can do is kind of not raise a fuss about it. At least, they all sort of have a sense of humor about her poor cooking. I can't believe you tricked me into eating my own horrible cooking. Alright, so things are getting a little interesting. Mai here has decided to tease Santa about the girl he likes and all that. And, I'm wondering what her goal is here. Because surely she's got to have some sort of Christmas magic and all that. But surely she wouldn't, intervene in free will and all that. Wow, Mai's going somewhere for sure. Because, obviously they're getting into the true meaning of Christmas, the birth of Christ and all that. But to claim that everyone celebrating Christmas is celebrating the birth of Christ and also the birth of Santa, I wouldn't want to be placed on that pedestal if I was him. Although it is, a nice kind of way to reassure him, I guess, that, even if they only have this modest celebration, people are, in a sense, sort of unknowingly celebrating him. Ooh. Mai's taking a bit of a strange approach here. I feel like you can't harangue someone into believing. Although I guess that wasn't necessarily what she was going for. Alright, well, I suppose she's taking a bit of a novel approach here. She has done something to make him happy, and now that he is happy, hopefully he can sort of spread that around of his own volition. Oh dear. So it seems like, Mai has a little bit of competition, I suppose, with that other girl. I'm wondering if she sort of invoked this, but given that she seems a little downcast, probably not. So, maybe it truly is just a Christmas miracle. Oh. Wow, that's unfortunate that she sort of manifested that phone call through her magic and that it wasn't really real. Oh dear. So not only has she sort of done that, but now Santa's just laying the facts on her that none of what she claims is real is real. Oh dear. So I get the feeling that this is going to have something of a dampening effect on any of her magic, right? Surely she's not going to be able to do things anymore, right? Wow, this is rather fast-paced, if I do say so myself. Mai has really grown attached to Santa with not much runtime. Not that it's the worst thing in the world, but boy, I feel like in a weird sort of way we've almost skipped a couple episodes and that we're sort of cutting right to the climax. Oh dear, Santa's now learning that, maybe Mai was right. It was her magic that made that phone call and that, he's gonna have to figure it out. Although, in a sense, things are not as bad as they appear because, everyone was just sort of under the impression that he didn't want to be invited to parties or anything like that. So in a weird sort of way, it seems like he was the architect of his own problems in a weird sort of way. Although that said, I'm not convinced that this is really real either, because everyone's saying they have fond memories about how, they would celebrate Christmas and his birthday at school because they landed near each other. I can understand how something like that would happen, but I feel like everybody's saying, oh no, we celebrate your birthday every year. That seems to me that, I don't know, I don't necessarily trust that being real either if the phone call wasn't real. Now, I guess the interesting thing here is that this flashback really does sort of indicate that things were never really as bleak and hopeless as he initially perceived them to be. It seems like he was really just sort of so caught up in his own world that he didn't really stop to look around and see what else was going on. And that maybe things didn't have to be quite as bad as they had been. It's good that he's realizing this, and it's also good that he's realizing that, maybe he was a bit careless with his words and that he should probably reconcile things with Mai first, even though, he really only met her earlier in the day. Yeah, this is a rather lucid thought coming to Santa's mind that, he wanted to have a girlfriend, someone who cares about him, and he got that and he pushed her away. So, now it's time to make things right, whatever that means. whatever he has to do to make it happen, he should do it. Now, sort of paradoxically, Mai's the one having a horrible Christmas Eve, and, it sort of falls to Santa to try and fix everything. Interestingly, though, Mai also mentions she sort of essentially gave away her magic to Santa, and the question is whether that's been truly squandered, because, she sort of mentioned that the happiness can be shared, essentially, so perhaps he could sort of fix things. He's already sort of apologizing and all that, and making an effort to set things right, but with the clock striking midnight and all that, I don't know if there's a deadline here. Oh dear. So it seems as though with, the clock striking midnight, this induces something of a transformation in Mai. Wow, that is a certainly striking change indeed, for both Mai and the reindeer. So I guess the question is, well, what now, This is ostensibly the same girl, but, oh dear. It's interesting that without, his full-throated belief in her, she becomes a brunette. Wow, so I guess Santa's just sort of, getting roped into her job, I guess. Now with a reindeer and a sleigh full of presents, I suppose they're going to deliver things, I guess. Well, I feel like, maybe Santa should have dropped some of the skepticism after, seeing the reindeer and all that. I recognize that this is truly, skepticism-shattering stuff here, but, there were signs. It is interesting that now Santa is involved in delivering presents and all that, because, there's gotta be a fair bit of work, and with it already being midnight, I feel like there's only so much time for him to help out doing stuff like this. In a way, it is sort of charitable of him. He could say, hey, could you drop me off and all that? I'd like to go to bed, but I guess in a way that would sort of violate the spirit of Christmas. So interestingly, the conversation has now drifted to dreams and desires, what people want and what people want to be. And Santa, he doesn't really want for anything at this point, which I suppose is nice, but now there's the matter of dreams, I guess the big overarching question is, what does he want to be, and hypothetically, does Mai have a place in that? Because, given the events that have happened, he certainly does seem attached to her. Ooh. I guess, before we can get any definitive answers, his mother's giving him a call saying, hey, sorry, we're working again. I feel like at this point, Santa's probably just gonna have to, offer a proverbial olive branch saying, look, I accept it, it's alright. Okay. Well, I'm not sure how I feel about this, because I get that he's accepting of it, and that he still does love his parents, but I don't think this necessarily absolves them for everything, because, look, it's one day, Although I guess at the very least, their work is important, as Mai has just showed him. But yeah, I don't know what to make of it. It's still not great, even if it is better than it was before. Now that's an interesting statement. Mai mentioning that there is a star that shines for the both of them. Now, I guess the real question is, was this star created, or, like, what's the deal here? To have a physical reminder of them glimmering in the heavens, you know? That seems to me to be rather remarkable. Oh dear. So it seems like Mai, despite her job, you know, she's far from the only one doing all this stuff, and it really does seem like she's kind of inadequate by the standards of her peers. Which, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that last little jab, but I guess more importantly, Santa's concerned about meeting Mai again, because, you know, obviously this is a Christmas thing, it happens once a year, but is this the only time? And it seems like they likely will meet again, if all goes well, but I suppose it's sort of incumbent upon Santa to believe. You know, if he doesn't believe, then why would it happen again? You know, Santa does raise a good point here in that at some point you do stop believing in Santa Claus, but a lack of belief doesn't mean the holiday has to become any less important. And in some ways, I think the function of the holidays in adulthood is making sure that the holidays are magical for children. Oh dear. So I guess, unfortunately Santa's now saddled with Mai for the year, you know? She used all her magic up, she can't head back to the North Pole, so... You know, what seemed to be like a once-a-year thing is now just gonna be ordinary, I guess. You know, he's just gonna have to live with her, whether he likes it or not. Now, of course, just because he has a new visitor doesn't mean everything is all just peachy keen. You know, she's likely not allowed to live beneath the North Pole most of the year. That's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. Merry Christmas, Space Cowboy.